It was really nice seeing Anna talking about the need to understand developers, because that's exactly what we do. First of all, who we are, SlashData. Our mission is exactly to help the world understand developers. And we do that through data that we collect. I'll show you in a second. We survey developers globally, and based on the experience that they share with us, we know who developers are. Basically, therefore, the size of their communities, the profile of their community members, what they buy, so their technology choices, and how happy they are with those, and where they're going next, so the emerging technologies. We do that by running 2 surveys annually. We've done that 20 times already. Currently, the 21st is live, is running. We reach developers from more than 150 countries across this world, and we do so using a very wide network of partners and channels, more than 80 every time. Not the exact same 80 each and every wave, because we want to make sure that we capture the views not of a single panel over and over again, but instead a representative sample every single time of the whole population. We ask them about 11 development areas, the ones you see here on the left, from mobile, desktop, and web, all the way to AI, machine learning, IoT, and so on. And we ask about all of those to make sure that we capture the full activity of developers. Right, and with that short intro, what I'll be talking about today, and I'll be showing you a lot of data based on all those surveys that we've run about how the global developer population is evolving. And then what's behind that growth. So it's not just the growth, it's the profiles behind that. How is that changing? We'll talk a bit about students and non-developers who are sort of game changers. The outlook of emerging technologies, because we're talking about the future, what is coming, so what the future developer will be working on. And finally, the value the developer brings and how that's important for DevRel. Okay, so we have 5 different and independent methodologies that we use to estimate the size of the developer community. You're very welcome to go to our methodology page and check that out. For now, I'll just say that happily all those 5 converge to similar numbers. So currently we estimate the global developer population to be at around 24.3 million globally. It has been growing very healthily, 28% in 2 years. And given that growth, we expect the developers to have about 27 million developers by the end of Q1 2022. Now, that growth is not coming, from the same place at the same pace. We have different regions growing at different paces. Here at the top, you see it's Asia. It's both East and South Asia combined. And the 2 regions combined are, in fact, the biggest region at the moment, followed very closely, of course, by North America. And what is important, however, in this graph, you can see that all regions are growing, but some are growing faster than others. So it's interesting to keep an eye on Middle East and Africa there, that is growing very fast, while Europe, both East and West, are not growing that fast. Asia is also growing a lot faster than the global rate. So it was 19% in a year as compared to 10% globally. And therefore, what does that mean? Is that it means that as time goes by, the regional mix is changing. And that's very important because we know from our research that developers in different regions behave differently. So they are in different projects, more of type A versus type B, and they're using different tools and so on. So as the regional mix changes, we expect that the global patterns, usage patterns may change. Now, unfortunately, I cannot show you all the demographics and how they're changing, so I'll just focus on the basics. So this is about the gender. So you may have noticed that in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of, there's many initiatives to help women participate more, to motivate them, encourage them to be part of the tech community. And happily, this seems to be paying off, and there are other factors as well, of course. But what they used to be, women used to be about 9%, 8 to 10% of the developed population. Now that has started to change. They're currently at 20%. That means that given the population, we have currently about 5 million female developers in the world. Why is that important? Well, it is because we know, again, from our data that women tend to do things slightly different. So they learn in different ways to learn. For example, they're also more into the more creative roles and managerial roles, managing tech products, for example, and they're more into data roles as well. So that's also important. Now, another demographic that is changing, not demographic exactly, but it's about software experience. So experience in software development. Now we see a clear shift towards the less experienced. If you see here on the left, I'm showing you the trend since 2017. And we have very steadily seen an increase in the number of inexperienced developers in the field, right? It's those with less than 1 year of experience in software experience, while at the same time, at the other end, we see a drop of the very experienced, while the middle is rather stable. Bear in mind that this is not linked to a drop of age. So it's not that we're seeing younger people in the ecosystem. The age distribution has not changed much. It's about the experience. This means that people of all ages, basically the same as before, are coming into the ecosystem, but they don't all of them have as much experience, so they're more experienced. What does that mean? That you will have to cater for the less experienced people to support them more. So you need possibly more training, more documentation, easiest ways to do things. So tooling with very steep learning curves might be in trouble. So that's also another trend to watch. And how has that come about? Why do we see more inexperienced people coming in? That goes hand in hand with having less technical people coming in. So as we have more APIs and more no-code tools and so on, it has become easier for non-technical people to step in. Another reason is that the whole ecosystem is maturing. So where you just had a developer playing around with some code in some cool project, now that is a product and it needs business people to run it. So we see managerial roles coming in. So the result is, as you see, that a year ago, we had 88% of all developers being under technical roles. So developers, specialists such as architects or admins, system admins and so on, DevOps specialists and so on, or data. And that was 88%, and 12% were the rest. In fact, business and creative roles, so creative such as designers or animators or so on, were just 4% and plus 6 business 10 put together. And that has grown to 20% now. People in research, that's a constant. We also have 3%, but we have more people in creative roles as now they can use the technology easily to build things. And business also, as I said, to manage the coding projects that we have become now products. The other interesting thing is students. So as coding has become the future quite some time now, we have seen a steady increase of developers in the whole ecosystem. Now, this has sort of flattened out in the last year. It could be due to the pandemic. We will wait and see. But in any case, the thing is that we have more than 1 in 3 developers being students, which is something you need to keep in mind because students have very different needs. So, for example, they value more mentoring programs or training materials, that kind of thing. They're less experienced, obviously. Sorry. So you need to keep in mind in all your efforts that 1 in 3 is a student. In fact, in some regions, it's far more than 1 in 3. In South Asia and Middle East and Africa, students form the majority of the communities. And it's no coincidence that you see all the, let's say, emerging areas here at the top. So South Asia, Middle East and Africa, Eastern Europe, and South America, even marginally, they have quite big student populations. Obviously, there young people saw the opportunity and jumped in. And what that implies for the future development system is that we will see lots of professionals in those regions in the next 4 years. And again, this is something to keep in mind. Now, why do we care if there are more students or if there are more non-technical roles? I could give you lots of examples, but I will just stick to the basic one here. No and low code tools. We ask developers whether they use them or not. So here on the left, you see the comparison between professionals and students. And as you can see, students use low and no code tools more than professionals. And therefore, that means that in the future, as the students become professionals, the usage of these tools may increase. On the right side, the difference is far more pronounced. You can see that non-technical roles use no and low code far more than technical roles, which makes sense. And again, therefore, as you see more of them coming in, that implies that the usage of these tools will increase. Therefore, this is just a basic example of how this will affect tooling. Now, again, we're discussing about the future developers. So as I said, we need to also take a look at what will they be working on. So on top of the mainstream technologies that we ask about in our survey, we also ask about emerging technologies. And what we ask developers is whether they use them, learning about them, or simply are interested in them. And this is how it looks. These are this is the ranking of emerging technology with regards to engagement. So engaged is a developer who's either using, learning about, or interested in technology. And you can see there are 3 technologies there at the top sticking out: robotics, mini apps, and computer vision, followed by self-driving cars and others. Interesting to note, because we'll see it again the next slide, Fog Edge being towards the bottom there at 31%. All right, so this is engagement, but it could be driven by hype, right? Because it also includes people who are interested in the technology, not necessarily doing something with it. So then the next question is, does engagement, does interest translate into usage? How can we, so to actually predict which of these technologies will be there in a few years is to see how this engagement actually turns into adoption. So this is what we have done here. Remember those 50% that we saw in the previous slide who are engaged with mini apps. Out of those 50%, 24% have actually adopted mini apps. 24 are learning about, and the rest are just interested in. So you can see here that mini apps, for example, is sticking out because it has the highest adoption at the moment, and computer vision is still there at the top. Now, remember I told you to keep an eye on Fog Edge. It was at the bottom, nearly at the bottom in terms of overall engagement. However, it's not that far down here in terms of adoption, which means that it has been there for a while, and interest is, whatever interest there is already, some of the hype is dying out. That's why you don't see the total of engagement being so high, but you have a healthy adoption rate for Fog Edge. Now, the other very interesting thing here is the learning about percentages, because they show that they are above 20% for most of these technologies, which means there is a lot of interest for several new emerging technologies, not new, but emerging. Therefore, there's no single one that seems to be dominant. There's some that are more dominant than others, but there's a lot of interest for many. For example, you can see 5G here, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and so on, having quite a lot of interest associated with them. Now, why do you need to understand the profiles? One good reason is, other than knowing what to tell to whom, is to be able to attach a value to each one of those profiles. And you need to understand, to add a value, I'll show you in the next slide in a second, so that you can estimate how much DevRel you can do and what DevRel will bring for you. So we asked DevRel practitioners, on top of serving developers, we also survey DevRel practitioners twice per year. And one of the things we asked them is whether or not they estimate the lifetime gain from an onboarded developer. And as you can see, nearly 40% here said that no, they don't know what's the value of the developer. And another 13 can say, so the majority really is not telling us. So even those who do use some sort of calculated gain methodology to estimate though that value, they still don't know what the value is. And those who do know, you can see that the estimates are all over the place, so there's no consensus. Of course, for different businesses, a developer may be bringing different value, but even so, this is still all over the place. So there's obviously a great need there's room for improvement, let's say, to estimate the value of a developer. Now, why should you get into such an exercise? Why should you try to understand the value that a developer brings throughout their lifetime with you? So it is so that you can understand and answer some key questions. One, how much you should invest in DevRel and dev marketing activities. So it's about estimating ROI here, right? You need to understand the R part of all your DevRel activities so that you know what cost you can justify. And it's not about only the cost of the activities, it's about a community. Many folks are wondering whether it's a good idea to build their own community or just be part of a broader community maybe. So this is something that's a key metric that would give you an idea. Does it pay to build and maintain a community? By estimating the value that you get from each developer that joins is where you get your numbers. And the other thing is it justified to have DevRel teams? How much a team is going to cost versus what we expect, how many developers we expect to onboard in that way, and what value will those developers bring? That will give you an idea of the P&L there. And finally, as I said, we're discussing profiles here, and this would give you an idea of which is the most valuable profile, and therefore the ones to focus your acquisition and retention strategies. There's a lot more to be said, and we have a methodology of doing that, but these are the key points about the need for developer lifetime value. That's more or less from me for today. You can please go ahead and go to DevRelX.com website, where you can find loads of data points, more than what I just showed you. And there's also the book that we publish, authored by 24 people in the industry, experts on DevRel, and will give you some guidance. Otherwise, please get in touch if you would like more information. Thank you.